Was my third month of my book club a 5-star read? I don't know. Let's find out. Hi everyone, I'm Sandy and welcome back to my channel. Today I have 1001 book countdown for you. It's been a couple weeks since I've had a countdown video. It's been slow going this year on the countdown. But you know what? I'm okay with it still. I'm going to keep saying that until I actually believe it. If you're not familiar with the 1001 book countdown, I will leave a card up here for you where you can go and check out the original video. But basically, I'm reading books off of the 1001 books you must read before you die list. It's a passion project of mine that I started a number of years ago, and I just started documenting it out here on BookTube about 2 years ago when I got to right around 1001 books left. Because I actually combined all versions of the books together, which was closer to 1,300 books. Actually, it was over 1,300 books, and I've been working my way through those. My official read count on Goodreads is 378 as of today. So I'm rapidly approaching 400 books read off of this list. I've made so much progress since starting my channel. It has been so much fun. And it is keeping me motivated, and I'm really loving a lot of the books that I'm finding off of this list. And then I'm not liking some of the books I'm finding. So please consider giving me a subscribe, sticking around, and seeing how far I make it on this fantastic project of mine that is going to take probably a number of years to complete. Like 15-ish. We'll see. But for today, what I will go ahead and do is put up the numbers, which are, I have to look, 886 and 45. Now 45 represents the number of books that I have left that I pre-selected at the beginning of the year. Each year at the beginning of the year, I pre-select 52 books, and those are the books I like to try and focus on and see if I can get that number to 0. I haven't made it any of the 2 years I've been doing the countdown. We'll see if I make it this year, though I should be a lot farther along. So 45 is that number. I have 45 books left to read that I pre-selected, and yeah, I'm behind. I should be closer to, 4 months in. 4 months times 4, 16 books off of that. I should be in the 30s. I should be around somewhere in the mid-30s by now, but it just hasn't happened, and we're just going to go with it. So as far as the countdown today, I do have my 1001 book club pick for April that I have finished. I finished it a few days early. And the book is Midnight's Children by Salman Rushdie. This book was originally published in 1981, and it won the Booker Prize in 1981. It has also won the Best of Booker twice, once in 1993 and once in 2008. So this book is a Booker Prize darling. I have seen it around on BookTube as well, and it got a number of votes. How many votes did it get? It actually got 4 votes when I was asking people what they wanted to read as part of the book club. And this is my first Rushdie. Salman Rushdie has 7 books on the 1001 book list. So this was a good experiment, a good first wave through this first time through this author. This book is about Salim Sinai, who was born on August 15th, 1947 at the stroke of midnight. And that happens to be the date of India's independence. Now, the book isn't just about Salim Sinai. It's also about all of the children that were born on that day. It also is a lot about his entire family. It starts out actually going back to his grandparents, and then his parents, and then his life, and then his family. So there's a lot of different characters in this, as well as the 1001 children that were born on the day of India's independence. Now, this book, when it started, I was fascinated by how the story was told. This is a very, very fast-paced book where so much is thrown into this, and we'll be talking in the about the book will be discussing the grandparents and then bounce to when the main character was 7, or it'll bounce to where his current wife is interjecting herself into the story, and it will switch from a third person to a first person and back and forth in there. In the beginning, I loved that. I thought it was incredibly well done and very, very funny in places, because it was often a way of introducing some humor. There were a number of sections in this book that I thought were really entertaining and very, very funny. And the main character, Salim Sinai, him kind of interjecting himself in the story was okay, and then got to be not okay. And the reason why I say not okay is about 400 pages through, I was getting exhausted reading this book. It just had such a, like I said, frantic pace to it, but it took a long time to get anywhere because the author is bouncing around. It's just so chaotic. It's very difficult to read at times. There are a lot of underlying meanings in this book. There's a lot of historical references to different events that happened. There's a reference that was also kind of in a fine balance of the forced sterilization in this book, of something called the emergency. So there's a lot of actual events that happened in India also in this book. And Salim Sinai, as a character, I thought he was interesting, but it got to be just exhausting. Like I said, way too long. And the other part that I really struggle with is this idea of a little bit of magical realism that got introduced into this story with the Midnight's children, which are the children that were born on the day of India's independence. Did it need that? Did it have to go to a magical realism place? I didn't feel like it needed that to be able to really tell the story if one of them had something kind of special about them. But as the story goes on, you learn more and more about them. And for me, that was like, okay, why? But in the end, I ended up giving it about a 3.5-star rating because of how tired I was at the end of reading this book. I just felt like I was put through this very chaotic marathon of going here and back and forth, and it just lost me. And I can pinpoint about the time that the story lost me as well. And I won't say what that is in case you're reading it or want to read this book, but it did lose me in there. I am intrigued by Rushdie, though. I do want to read more, and I certainly have 6 more opportunities, including the Satanic Verses to read. Won't be this year. So I'm curious to see what I think of his other books, whether or not they are stories that I will like. I wanted this to be a 5-star read, and it ended up being closer to the 3.5-star in the end. I liked it, didn't love it, wish it was about 100 pages shorter is what I ended up with. So that's Midnight's Children by Salman Rushdie. But with this, we do get to go from, I have to look, 886 to 885, and it was on my 2023 list. So that means I get to go from 45 to 44. Great. Like I said, I should be in the mid-30s, and I'm not. So that's, it is what it is. I have been reading a lot of other books this year, including Judging for the Booktube Prize, which I did last year, but I don't seem to have as much time this year, and I'm trying not to severely overload my TBRs so that I have time to pick up different things. So that's kind of where it is at. I don't know if I'll catch up. This is the farthest behind I think I've been since starting my channel. So yeah. What am I working on? I'm still working on this one, Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky. I am about halfway through. I just finished part 3. I finished part 3 and then put it down and didn't pick it back up again. I'm doing this as a buddy read with Gemma from Gemma Books and Alice from Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. And all 3 of us are just kind of taking our time with it and finding it hard to read, I think, on a formal schedule. And it is not the book I want to go and pick up. It's not to say I don't like it, because I do think it is a really interesting book, and the premise is really interesting, and the main character is interesting. It's just, I don't know why I just don't want to pick it up. Maybe it was trying to read this one and this one at the same time. I don't know if that was advised, because both of these need a lot of brain power to get through, and I could only give my brain power to one of them. And the other thing with this book that I forgot to mention is that I ended up getting the audiobook, and I didn't listen to it on its own. I listened and read. because I was having trouble comprehending everything when I was just trying to read it. I felt like I was losing a ton. And when I had that dual piece in there of listening and reading it, I was felt like I was able to consume far more of it and understand and retain far more of it versus just reading it. So that's the other thing with this book. But yeah, I would highly recommend getting the audiobook. If you're struggling with that book, get the audiobook because it's narrated absolutely brilliantly, very, very well done. And it kept me engaged in the story, especially towards the end when I was getting very disconnected and unplugged. And the reason why I put quotes is that's actually a line at closer to the end of the book. Very disconnected and unplugged towards the end where I just kind of wanted to get it done. All right. But as I said, Crime and Punishment, I will finish this soon, hopefully. And that's the only other 1001 book that I'm actually working on right now. Everything else is sitting on my shelf. I have a number of BookTube prize books that I'm still trying to finish. I have a couple buddy reads starting next week. None of those are for a 1001 list book. Yeah, it's just kind of not what I've been wanting to read as recently. But I will get back to it. I'm working still on Half American for the BookTube prize right now. You can see there's a good bookmark in there. I'm over halfway through or about halfway through of that particular book. And that's what I have going right now. Have you read Midnight's Children? Did you love it? What did you like about it? There was some great conversation out there on the Discord channel for this particular book, and far smarter people than I were leaving comments out there. So thank you so much to everyone who read this with me, Midnight's Children with me, and left comments out there. I really appreciate all of the conversation out there, and you definitely kept me motivated to read. So, but with that, that is the end of my 1001 book countdown video today. As always, like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, thanks. Bye.